3, 2, 1.
This is The Jungle, an up-close, unvarnished look inside leadership and business strategy. We wade into the real-world leader's face and explore what they do to create a path forward, because that's what business is. Wild, exciting.
It's The Jungle.
Derek, welcome back to The Jungle. I feel like I haven't gotten your normal 75 texts this morning yet. Are you busy today?
Busy. It's Monday. Monday's acquire day, acquire night, acquire day. It's all acquire, right? It's all LBS and acquire my whole life. What's background, by the way, Doug?
You like that? It's a good background here. So you've been staying busy on Mondays with acquire. I mean, a lot of action going on these days, is there not?
Not just Mondays, Doug. It's my entire existence right now. Acquire and LBS are my existence and my family. It's amazing. We've got so many people reaching out from so many different spots in life, in this world, and whether it's people that want to sell their business, people that want to come take this path. You and I made a strategic decision to open this up to the community, and we're testing that out. It's been so thrilling to test that out and see people from the community come take the class, and they're super motivated and they want to learn and want to learn more. And they're just hungry to be in the class, and they're appreciating it. We got working with lawyers and finance people, and it's a constant flow of information, making new connections all over the place, with people from, you name it, investors and capital. And it's just an exciting time. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of flow of information coming right now, but it's so exciting, and there's just a lot happening with it. And hopefully we'll run another program in January. We're learning how to do this well virtually for people that start from very different places on their journey. So that's a challenging part of Acquire is you can start this from anywhere in your life, and we're going to take you on a journey. We need to get a little better at doing some of that, but it's been exciting. It's been exciting. So super busy, not texting you as much as I should. So are you miss me, Doug, or what's going on?
Well, yeah. And but we'll see each other, I guess, because we're going to actually go look at a company tomorrow, right? With an aspiring owner operator. So that's been exciting, and it's been an amazing time. I mean, once we announced the launch of our fund, I mean, just the level of networking and connections in our community has been amazing, and the opportunity really that this path provides. I mean, for listeners who don't know anything about the acquisition program, we launched in September that we're raising a $50 million fund to support aspiring owner operators buy a company. So we talk about it as entrepreneurship through acquisition, not climbing a corporate ladder or starting a company, but going out to buy a company. And we're training folks in the community and our MBA program to do that. And so call to action for those who are out there who are interested in following this path, reach out to us. Send us an email. We always love engaging experienced folks who are looking for that career change to actually own and run a company. So it's a great time to get involved. A little bit learning by doing, as we're a scrappy startup right now, and so we're working through how to deliver this experience at a distance. Thank you, COVID. Thank you, 2020. But it's been a fun time, and we actually had it's one reason this initiative was really making us so excited to have our guest on that we had today. So we had June Montgomery Tabron. She is the CEO of the Kellogg Foundation here in Battle Creek. In 2013, she was named CEO, and she was the first woman and African-American to lead the foundation. The Kellogg Foundation, for folks in our community know, but folks who are tuning in nationwide, I mean, this is a internationally known foundation that does incredible work all across the country, all across the world. And I love their focus on thriving children, working families, and equitable communities, and thinking about the relationship between those three. June was a terrific guest. Lots of really good takeaways. Derek, what were yours?
Oh yeah, she was great. I mean, such a big organization that's right here in Battle Creek, and she was great to have on. I liked, and I wanted to learn more. I was hungry to learn more about her the training programs that they have in their entrepreneurship fund, and then what she called technical assistance, which is, they start with big vision, but they get very practical. And when she talks about practicality and reality, that's important. And she even went down to, helping people understand simple things like cash flow, how cash moves in and out of the business. She had a great example of you get on a big project, they won't pay for 120 days. A small business can't always handle a 120-day loan to a big company, right? But the big companies ask for that. So how are they able to support smaller businesses and even accessing those just by understanding the cash flow and understanding the cash flow needs and training on that. So this is something we focus on in Acquire is, it's strategy, it's thinking, it's your passion, but it's also understanding how to talk business and the business language, which is accounting and cash flow and finance. So, that was my takeaway. You can have big visions, but you got to get practical and realistic. And she did that with her, what she called technical assistance, which I thought was a great term. What about you, Doug? What was your takeaway?
Yeah, she was phenomenal. I mean, so many great takeaways. I mean, for me, the takeaway was really around relationships. And, obviously, we're coming from the business school, from the WMU Hayworth. And so we're interested in how the for-profit sector companies can play a role in increasing equity, increasing opportunity. And, some of the lessons she shared, one of those was around the importance of networks and relationships. And that's something that we are definitely finding as we are raising our fund and connecting with folks. There are so many different actors that are touching this initiative. And just the importance of ensuring that you are reaching out to as many people as you can, as many stakeholders as you can, to build that network, because that's where the opportunities can really be provided to folks in an equitable way. And just the importance of relationships underneath all of it, that building good, trusting, authentic relationships is so critical. It's critical to business success. It's critical to fundraising. It's critical to what we're trying to do with Acquire, and difficult at the same time, given the pandemic, given the fact that we're at distance. So it was a great conversation that we had with her. Big tea drinker. I love that too.
Yes, tea. I know you're a big tea guy.
It was great. So shout out to Rishi Tea. Lejeune loves the ginger turmeric tea, which actually I just got last month, and it is fantastic. So I would recommend that as well.
Should be some anti-inflammatory in there with the turmeric, right?
It is. It is. I need that with given how old I am these days. So
you are old, Doug.
I know. So with that, terrific guest. Hope everybody enjoy our conversation with June Montgomery Tabron, the CEO of the WK Kellogg Foundation.
The Jungle is produced by the Center for Principled Leadership and Business Strategy in Western Michigan University's Hayworth College of Business. Our center supports the leadership and business strategy major, conducts large-scale consulting projects, and trains professionals in acquiring and operating small businesses. To learn more, visit wmich.edu/leadership center.
June, welcome to The Jungle.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Do you have a beverage with you, June?
I drink tea. Yes, I drink tea.
So tell us, we were talking a little bit about tea when we were getting started here. What's your favorite go-to these days?
So I will drink anything warm, any tea warm. I'm not a coffee drinker. I've never liked coffee at all. But lately I've been drinking turmeric and ginger tea, or ginger and lemon tea. Anything with ginger or lemon is good for me.
I've got a recommendation. So do you know Rishi tea?
Yes, that's my favorite.
I actually just got some of the turmeric ginger from.
Yes.
It's really good. Derek, that's a must try.
Oh, see,
it is.
See, when I met Doug Lejeune, he got me off of coffee onto tea for my health reasons. And now he has me buying super expensive tea all the time, which is great for my health. But I'm actually having my morning tea. It's Goikru. Did I say that right, Doug?
You did.
Goikru. So Goikru green tea, it is phenomenal. I have one every morning, and it kind of gets me going. So
okay, I don't know if I've heard of that one. I'll have to take notes.
They have that at Rishi. I would also recommend that at Rishi. So shout out to Rishi Tea. They've got fantastic.
Yes, awesome.
Yes.
So June, thank you so much for joining us. First off, tell us a little bit about what 2020 has been like. You're the CEO of the Kellogg Foundation. 2020 feels like it just keeps giving in different ways. Walk us into what your experience has been like.
So the one word that I use for 2020 is disruption, right? We were learning about disruption. Business schools were talking about disruption, and then 2020 came along. Everything was disrupted, our way of life. So for me, leading the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, the first thing we had to do when we were hit by the COVID pandemic was to think about what that means for our staff. How do you make sure that people are safe, and then to think and rethink the importance of our work, how we get our work done, and to be very agile. This called for agility and flexibility. And fortunately, we had already began to pivot in that way. A couple years ago, we shifted our entire organization into what we call the networked org. So moving away from hierarchical models of command and control, created a leader-full organization, which is what we call it. You have pods and squads and networks that work together. But because of that shift a couple years earlier, the staff was able to pivot almost seamlessly without a lot of disruption. And we have moved on and just been able to focus on the work.
So have you noticed anything personally about your leadership that you've learned through this process that you'd want to share with listeners around lessons on leading a large organization like the Kellogg Foundation?
Yeah, I mean, in this moment, the first thing I, thought about from my own leadership is practicality, being realistic, being courageous, but calm, and showing a temperament that is calming and soothing for staff and other leaders, because everyone's trying to find their way, right? And stepping into that path first and leading others into a totally new reality. We're nothing like we used to be before. Zoom is our way of life. We meet with our staff every other Tuesday. What we've learned is communication is key in this remote environment. So we've created ways to communicate on a regular basis, and we've also tried to engage people in a little fun, because this can be pretty daunting. And what we started to understand is, the stressors are real right now, between parents at home becoming teachers when they never thought they'd have to teach their children, and balancing this work, maybe caring for other family members. It's just a lot going on right now. So we have to keep that balance. And we've thought a lot about what that means for us.
So, June, it seems like you guys have gone to agility, accelerated some of your initiatives, balance, Zoom. Can you maybe share with listeners any pleasant surprises you've had in there, or anything that was a major challenges you guys overcome, and now it's really benefited your organization, so other leaders could learn from that?
Mm-hmm. Well, one surprise for me was how people stepped up. How we talk about those stressful moments, and your instinct just has to step in. And we've been doing a lot of leadership development training, and when the rubber hit the road, our leaders were ready. They were solid. And maybe I shouldn't have been surprised, but we've just been functioning at a level that we never expected, and it's been so smooth. And so the one thing I would say to leaders, one, is to trust in your staff. they are capable, and trust in the leadership that we're building throughout the organization. It showed up for us very well, very well.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
The courage part is so critical. We see it with our students,
Yeah.
because there's so much uncertainty in the world right now. So speaking of an uncertainty, let's step back and talk a little bit about the Kellogg Foundation and how is 2020, the pandemic, conversations around racial equity, inequality. How has 2020 impacted how you see your mission or your priorities, opportunities that you're now advancing because of the pandemic and everything else going on this year?
Yeah, so I want you to notice my banner. We started out 2020 thinking this is our 90th anniversary. Mr. Kellogg created the foundation in 1930. So we were thinking about this year as a year where we would honor his legacy. And he wanted us first and foremost to improve the lives of children, that children are the center of everything we do. But children live within the context of families, and families have opportunities based on the communities and the environments they live in. And so our work has always been about strengthening families, making sure that families have opportunities and have working families, and communities are equitable. And then, a couple months in, the world changed, and all of a sudden our 90th anniversary wasn't the most important thing we needed to deal with. We were in the middle of a pandemic, and we were watching people die. And for our work, unfortunately, our work could have predicted the outcomes that we were seeing, because of course we work with the most vulnerable children and families, and those were the people who were most challenged by COVID, and the people who were dying were those essential workers that had to go to work, could not social distance, needed to provide for their families. And so it just took us back to the decades of work we were doing in the food insecurity space and the health equity space. And of course, then the social unrest occurred, and the racial injustices were laid bare across the nation. And again, this is core to our work, because as we think about how you improve the lives for children, we want to look at the root causes that impact children's lives. And unfortunately, in the United States, racial inequality is one of those structural barriers that impact children of color, and those are some of the most vulnerable that we're dealing with. So when all of that happened, again, we thought about our work. We know that what we want to do is improve systems so that everyone can thrive and every child can thrive. And so while we were just totally upset, disheartened, we also saw it as an opportunity. And we started to think about, what can this foundation do with the legacy of work in these areas? How do we uplift people? How do we help communities stand strong in the midst of the pandemic, but then to rebuild and to think about their future and use this as an opportunity? I mentioned earlier, disruption was my key word that kept ringing in my ear. And, several years ago when Uber first emerged, I learned about disruption and what it looks like when it disrupts a sector, and how it disrupted transportation the way it did. And I thought, here we are again. So we had to think about, what are those pivotal points? We're now in that space. What do we do to rebuild better? To think about a future that we can now create with better opportunities for all. So we dug into our work. We doubled down, and we said, we've been funding racial healing and racial equity in the United States for decades. And here we were in a moment where healing was the need for healing was very palpable, right? We were watching people demonstrate all over the nation in the midst of a health pandemic, and it was like they were calling for the type of support that we have been giving for many years. So we wanted to get involved, and we wanted to provide resources. So one of the courageous things I did this year was I went to my board and I said, this is time to spend more money. So we normally spend 5% of our payout for charitable purposes. That's required by the Internal Revenue Service. I went to the board and I said, we need to spend more now. So our board approved an additional $300 million of distributions that we will spend over the next 2 years. So to put that in perspective, we normally spend about $300 million a year. They approved an additional $300 million for the next 2 years. So if you think about it, in the next 2 years, we're going to spend $900 million, close to $1 billion now because of those additional resources. And we decided we wanted to put that money to work in communities, working on the issues that we now see are desperately needed: racial equity, racial healing, health equity, employment equity. We want to be part of the solution for communities.
So as you think about the opportunities and the disruption, I think innovations, new ways of thinking, we're coming from the business school. And so we're interested in, particularly in ways in which business can play a role in solving and addressing, the systems and providing opportunity. Are you seeing any interesting things bubble up right now from the for-profit world that you guys are excited about to make an impact?
Yes, I'm very excited. So, and I think all of us saw some of the leaders of corporate America standing up and writing statements about this moment and the inequalities in our economic system that needed to shift. And this was time for shifting. I don't know, because we're right here in Kalamazoo, Battle Creek area, Bill Johnston's letter that he wrote from Greenleaf Capital on the issue of racism in America was totally inspiring to me. And what we decided at the Kellogg Foundation is this was a moment to seek allies, and corporate leaders could be allies to us as we continue to look at the racialized structures that prevent some from opportunities. And let's work with corporate America to begin to open up pathways and opportunities for people to have great job opportunities, entrepreneurship, access to capital, and then let's drive a new way forward. And so particularly at the Kellogg Foundation, we have partnered with McKinsey, and we are working. We started with the financial services sector, and I'll explain that in a minute. But basically, we reached out to all of our money managers that were managers of our portfolio. And again, the reason we did that is we said we pay out 5% every year for charitable distributions, but what's happening with the other 95%? How can we leverage that toward the mission and the change that we want to see? And that 95%, our corporates, our portfolio, is in the hands of money managers all over the nation and the world. So we went to them and we said, join us in thinking about opening up opportunities for people of color in your sector, the financial services sector, which less than 1% of owners in the financial services sector are women or people of color. And so we're now partnering with McKinsey and some of the largest money managers to think about first how they can open up opportunities for diversity, equity, and inclusion in their own institution, and then how they can work with us to champion why it's important for all the other sectors and be our allies and help us move forward in creating equitable opportunities for all.
I want to go that 1% number. Can you say that that's unbelievable. 1%.
Yeah, less than 1% of all the owners in the financial services sector are women or people of color. So this was an area where even our major firms said we can do better, and they're starting to work within their organizations first, and then to help lead the sector more broadly, which is where you start. You start with your own organization. We started with our own organization, and we've since learned a lot from that process, which now we share publicly. We have an article on our website called One Journey, and it's about the W.K. Kellogg Foundation's journey into racial equity and how we shifted our own organization to where now we are 60% people of color on our board, 45% people of color in our organization, coming from, 3 decades ago when I started, very few people of color. So
it's amazing.
It's been a journey.
The 1% number is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. The work to do indeed. I mean, it's just shocking. That focus on ensuring everyone has the opportunity to own capital, to own businesses is obviously something that Derek and I are passionate about. With our raising our fund and our Acquire program here at the Hayworth College of Business to train the future generation, the next generation of our local business leaders, and making sure that that's open to everyone. When you step back and look at, you guys do work around the world. What are we'd love to learn from you. What are the insights that you have around structures, processes, capabilities that you need to actually ensure that percentage of ownership goes from 1% upwards? What are the lessons that you'd want to share?
Yeah, and there are many, but the one thing that I would say is when you think about the processes that exist to access capital, they're pretty limited, and the networks are very tight within those processes, and so it's very difficult. It's difficult for many people to access capital, but when you're a person of color and your track record isn't as long and your network of who in that sector is not as wide, it's very difficult to access and enter into that space. And so what we've been able to do, in fact, you can look this up on our website. We partnered with JP Morgan Chase and created a fund called the Entrepreneurs of Color Fund. And it was a fund in the Detroit area where we noticed that entrepreneurs of color were not accessing the typical capital markets the way that they should. And so we said we would have a special fund that would allow them, to be prepared to enter the market. So there's some technical assistance that has to go along with the fund itself, and that's a key insight. And when people don't have that technical assistance or access to those experts, it is very difficult to put a package together that will, resonate in that large mainstream market. So with the technical assistance, what we learned is there are very capable talents, and the fundamentals of the businesses were solid. They just didn't have the financial capacity to package the product and to sell themselves, et cetera. So we provided all that resource, and what we found is, we strengthened some businesses in that process, and the fund was so successful that it's being replicated in other markets across the United States, and We want to do it locally in Battle Creek. We're starting to think about what that looks like. I love the fun that you're talking about, but we do now have better approaches. And the one other thing I would say is we partner a lot with CDFIs, or community development financial institutions, and they are becoming great partners in the lending part of the process, and creating those lending processes that are very helpful and supportive, but takes people over the finish line and makes them, bank ready.
Yeah, so I got one question, maybe detailed, maybe we're going too deep here, but could you expand on technical assistance? Because one of the things when we launched this program with Western, Doug and I said, we have to have this open to the community, not just our students. So anybody from the community can come take this and get the necessary training. But it's a big lift, right? When you're talking with a very diverse population that's coming in, and they're starting at different points, from financial acumen to technical acumen. Can you talk about some of this? You said some of it was finance, right? And then how to present themselves. But it's, it can be challenging to provide that technical assistance. And you need the resource. So could you expand on that a little bit? And how that works?
So, when I talk about technical assistance, it may even be more simple than you think about. But for example, talking to a business about a credit score, for example, and how to build and boost that credit score. What do you need to do if you, you may be 10 or 20 points away from a range that's acceptable? How can we help you get there? So that's one just very practical example of what some of the others need. Cash flow planning, budgeting, how to put a budget together, so a lot of people, when they start their businesses, they started from a place of passion, right? They're very passionate about a product or a skill, and they know they can do it, but then how to scale that, or how to prepare for a particular contract is, so we take it down to the very practical level, and then we decide the type of expertise they need. And so if it turns out they need a marketer, then we align them with an expert in that space. Or if it turns out they need a financial plan or a stronger business plan, we partner with them, someone who can help them flesh that out. One example in Detroit, I love to give this example. When they were building Little Caesars Arena, they opened it up, and there's even I think a policy in Detroit that says, you should look at people of color to try to allow them to bid on some of the contracts. But when you go down deep into how that works practically, if you're a small business and you don't have a lot of cash flow, when you bid on those big contracts like that, you don't get paid for 120 days. So think about a small business trying to compete, having the skill set and everything to compete, but they don't have 120 days cash flow to pay their people. And if you don't have that, you can never bid on one of those contracts. So through the process, we learned that we can give them a loan for the 120 days. That's all they needed. And then they could compete with everyone else, and it happened. And we grew some great businesses of color by understanding how the system worked and how to allow people to participate equally in that process.
That's a great example.
Such a great example on like getting down to the technical of. It's a big part of our course, cash flow planning, right? Like that's a big thing to understand. And some people just don't grasp how money moves through a business. And the 120 day, that's a loan you're giving to someone, and you've got to have enough cash to pay the employees until they gets paid. So great example. That's fantastic. I really like that approach.
The other takeaway I have from, I'm foreshadowing the takeaway, Derek. I'm going to have, but the importance of and we're learning this as well from as we go through raising our fund and connecting all these pieces is. And you talk about the importance of communities and, children within families, within communities. How much of this, and you're talking about networks, how much of this is so relational and so relationship based, and coordinating all these actors and ensuring that there's opportunity into those networks is so critical. We're seeing it ourselves, from bankers to lawyers to buyers to sellers to the university to funds to foundations to investors, and that is a really interesting learning that we're starting to develop too.
Absolutely, all of it is relational. At the end of the day, all of it is relational, and that's what people don't fully understand our racial healing work, but that's really all about relationships. And when we say racial healing is at the heart of racial equity, you don't get to equity until first you've rebuilt relationships that haven't been built, connected people and brought people together who have not been connected and don't really know one another. So that's at the core. And it's all about just building trust, right? Building trusting relationships. And we can do a whole other session on how you build trust, right? Because that's the foundation of a strong, solid, sustainable relationship. But our racial healing work is about that as well. And we believe that once you bring people together and they can build an authentic relationship and share stories together and share their own truths in a safe space, then they can become one humanity, one human being, one together. And that's when they start thinking about, okay, how do we build systems that work for all of us? And then, you get to those spaces of how we can, just coexist as one humanity and share this earth together and create opportunities so everyone can thrive.
It's so important. And it is, I fully, resonate and believe it. It is all relational. And when you have a pandemic that puts everybody at a distance, and, I was just reading something in the Wall Street Journal about, fatigue on separation from family, and you throw in all the other problems we have, and it's repairing that and strengthening that is so critical. We need to do another podcast. We're almost out of time. We need to do another podcast just on that. Cause I'd love to learn, how your foundation is dealing with that. So let's close out with some rapid fire questions. Are you ready to go?
Okay.
All right. Favorite leader?
Nelson Mandela.
Courage or compassion?
Courage all day long.
Love it. Speed or accuracy?
Both.
Great ideas or great execution?
Oh, you got to execute. So execution, but you can't execute if it's not a good idea.
Okay. A word to describe your leadership style?
Bold, but humble.
Okay. Are you a night owl or an early bird?
Early bird.
So our podcast is called The Jungle, based on a Ray Dalio quote. You live an ordinary life where you are, you cross a dangerous jungle to live a great life. If you had to cross a dangerous jungle and it was some of the important work you're doing at the Kellogg Foundation, who are you taking with you? If you could take anybody.
Oh, I'm taking my leadership team right now. My leadership team is awesome. We have built everything that I'm talking about. We've built it within our leadership team, and we've gotten through this COVID pandemic together. We can get through anything together. We've done some great work, and that's what leadership teams are all about.
All right.
We go together.
It's good to have a great team around you. We can do another podcast on that.
Yes.
If you're going to eat at a restaurant in Battle Creek before going through this dangerous jungle, you're going to bring your leadership team. Where are you going to go eat?
That's interesting. We like to go the noodle place. What is the name of the noodles? Not ramen noodles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And then if to close out, if you had an animal that really represented your leadership, what animal would you pick?
I would say a panther.
A panther.
Panther.
Yes.
Why panther? Why'd you land on that?
Because it's sleek, it's elegant, it moves slow. It seems to me to be more of a strategic animal, and that's how I consider myself. I'm not reactive in a sense that it's just without thinking and strategically thinking through short, long term, medium term. You have to be calculating.
I like it.
Very good. Very good.
Well, June Montgomery Tabron, the CEO of the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, a great worldwide, internationally known foundation here in Southwest Michigan. Really appreciate you joining us.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. I'm going back to my tea.
Enjoy.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.